Why luxury prisons are actually genius. Let's lock in, chat.
This is a Norwegian prison cell. Here, prisoners have their own bedrooms with their own TVs, their own desks, and their own bathrooms. 12 hours a day, they can leave the cell and do whatever they want. Exercise, cook, play sports or video games, and more. It's strange comparing this to an American prison cell. Here, there's no TV, no desk, no bathroom. Which works? One way to measure it? How often prisoners, once they're out, end up back in after committing more crimes. In Norway, the rate is 25%. In America, it's 76%. And this difference adds up fast.
Oh my.
If only out of every 4 prisoners in America stays out of prison, the population grows and grows and grows. Add in the fact that the average American prison sentence is 32 months, 4 times longer than Norway's 8, and it's easy to see how America has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. You might think,
Honestly, I feel like that kind of makes sense though. Like if you think about with parenting, it's usually the kids that are like getting screamed at, yelled at, like in supermarkets. It's like constantly like their kids are just always fucking misbehaving. And then you have the kids that like the parents are like these super chill, like, oh, it's okay. That's like how you were supposed to do things, like they're trying to like build them up, give them like a good foundation. I feel like it's like a representation of like what this is essentially. Cause like the people in the Norway ones are essentially getting, whatever the fuck, getting everything that they would ever want. And the people in the United States cells are just going to get nothing, and then they end up being more misbehaved, similar to how it is with parenting. So I feel like there's some kind of psychological effect with that, but I'm not smart enough for that.
well, bad guys should stay in prison, and it should suck. It keeps us safe. But if that's how this worked, why is America's homicide rate still 8 times higher than Norway's? Because this is about punishment, and this is about rehabilitation.
I was just about to say that. So it's pretty much exactly what I said with it rehabilitates them, right? Criminals, and like if you're making like bad decisions that you have to like, end up in jail, most of the time you deserved it and you need help with something. And I think that just putting you in a cage like an animal isn't really solving the core issue with you as a person, which is, I mean, honestly, I think this is the solution, which is why he's probably going to talk about here. But
maybe that sounds like a liberal fantasy. After all, how could playing video games be rehabilitative? And maybe Norway's success is just a product of a different culture, not a different prison. At least, that's what I thought when I started digging into this. But then I learned 2 crucial things. First, in the 1980s, Norway's rate of ex-cons returning to prison was as high as 80%, higher than America's today.
Wow.
And crime there was twice as common as it is today in Norway. It's not as though Norwegians have crime-resistant antibodies in their Viking blood. They did something in the 1990s that changed everything, and that's the second thing I learned. Norway had a revolution in prison philosophy that's about so much more than leisure time and video games. Fengselsbetjent, normalitetsprinsippet, fengselsstraffen, and perhaps their most important secret weapon, samfunn.
I don't know what any of that means.
So I'm going to dig into these 4 concepts and explain how they work, because I think they do work, not just on Norwegians, but on humans. Along the way, I'll be honest about the serious challenges facing the Norwegian system. How does it handle illegal immigrants? Is it just too expensive? Can other countries really use these? And above all, how does a system like this cope with a mass murderer like Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people in Norway in one day in 2011?
How do you even how do you kill 77 people in a day, bro? This guy went on an entire spree. Like, that seriously just has to be a mass shooting. Wait, what's his name?
Like this, countries really use these? And above all, how does a system like this cope with a mass murderer like Anders Breivik, who killed...
Anders Breivik. Okay, I spelled that completely wrong. Oh, he's a neo-Nazi. Okay, Anders Behring Breivik is a Norwegian neo-Nazi mass murderer and domestic terrorist who perpetrated the 2011 Norway attacks, a believer in the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, and sought to combat perceived cultural Marxism by detonating a car bomb at the I'm not gonna try reading that in Oslo, then carrying out a mass shooting at a summer camp. This guy was an actual fucking psychopath, bro. Yeah, how do you deal so there's just like I feel like a point where you just can't rehabilitate these type of people. No, when you are a literal neo-Nazi domestic terrorist, I feel like it's going to be kind of hard to rehabilitate you back into society. I feel like you're kind of set on like whatever you're going to do in your life, but maybe that's just me.
77 people in Norway in one day in 2011. So This is how Norway did it, how they reinvented the prison, their secret formula for success, and the big challenges still ahead. As a matter of fact, Norway's prisons used to look just like this. So how did Norway get here? This paper explains everything, and it holds many of the secrets that make Norway's prisons work. It's a study commissioned by the government in the 1970s about how to fix the country's broken prison system. You see, not long ago, Norway's prisons were basically stuck in the mid-1800s. Back then, Norway built their first formal prisons, or penitentiaries. The philosophy of these institutions was that through isolation, prayer, and Bible study, criminals could see the errors of their ways and change themselves. But 100 years later, it was becoming clear that penitentiaries just didn't work. Intensive isolation produced madness as often as enlightenment, and by the 1970s, things were getting bad. The country was urbanizing, crime was rising, and without functional prisons, reincarceration rates climbed too. Prisons became incubators for more crime, and many Norwegians could see this old approach just wasn't working. So the government commissioned this report. Inside, the findings were radical. Instead of individual moral sin, the report blamed systemic social ills for most crime. Instead of physical or spiritual punishment, the report recommended sympathetic rehabilitation. When the Justice Minister, Inger Louise
That's
Vala,
crazy. I was gonna say, like, I don't know if adding, making the excuse that just because of where you came from gives you actionable cause for the decisions that you make, but at the same time, I mean, I guess he's about to say, like, why that was a good thing with that finding, but
presented it, she was nearly laughed out of parliament by her own party. In the end, her reforms were ignored. So in the 1980s, things got worse. Crime rose further as drug use and trafficking exploded. Recidivism reached rates of 80%. Norway wasn't safe. Neither were its prisons. In 1989, a guard was killed by an inmate. 2 years later, it happened again. While many could tell Norway's penal philosophy wasn't working, nobody felt it like the prison guards. To them, change couldn't come fast enough. So in the 1990s, they looked back at this report, found some lessons, and catapulted Norway's prisons out of the 1800s with the first of 4 principles. No more Fengelsvakt. No more prison guards.
Ooh.
In place of the Fengelsvakt would be Fengelsbetjent. Prison guards were now prison officers. But this was much more than just a name change. Instead of merely enforcing punishment and restrictions, the prison officer was tasked with actively facilitating rehabilitation. That required 3 big changes: education, contact officers, and dynamic security.
Oh, that's
For
crazy. So
education,
they're essentially like another therapist for the prisoners then, or like, I guess not another a therapist for the prisoners, because I feel like that's like way more productive than fucking just putting them into a cage for however many fucking years that they like committed crimes for.
In Norway, they have a university specifically for prison officers. Here they spend 2 full years with pay studying psychology, criminology, law, human rights, and ethics. Before this, prison guards in Norway had only a 9-week training course. In America, many states today require 4 weeks or less of training. Some only require 48 hours. According to Harald Fusker, who directed Norway's Prison Officer University for 30 years, the objective is to produce officers who can, quote, handle the responsibility that is entailed in having power, and who have the belief that people can change their pattern of action. By the way,
Yeah, because if you're a prison guard, you're not gonna have any incentive to change. Especially, like, let's just say this: like, you're committing crimes, you're a bad person, right? And then you're around people that are also committing crimes, and you have like no kind of outside perspective or like any type of internal help from like anybody. So you're just with your own thoughts. So it's kind of like an echo chamber almost, and you're literally just in an echo chamber of your own thoughts with other people who have the same thoughts as you, because they're all criminals, if that makes sense. So
to remember this guy, Harald Fusker. He's
kinda
going to
looks like Warren
suffer a
Buffett.
terrible catastrophe later,
shit.
and his perspective is really important. But first, let's continue. Now, the Fengelsbetjent is not responsible for rehabilitation. That lies with the prisoner alone, but the well-educated prison officer can support that process. To that end, every prison officer also serves as a contact officer to at least one inmate. Kind of like guidance counselors, they help inmates navigate their time in prison, advise them on their life plan after release, and even assist them with job and housing applications.
I hope that these guiding counselors are like actually more like productive and helpful than like the ones you guys like. You guys remember like when you have like a guidance counselor at school, they get paid to do like absolutely nothing. Like genuinely, like it's the type of thing where like you tell your teacher that you're like sick, like you're nauseous, and then they bring you to the nurse to give you an ice pack. Like it's like that type of useless, bro. Like you guys remember in school, like those counselors are literally the most useless fucking individuals on the planet. Like you have any type of problem, you're not getting helped, bro. Even to like picking classes, like that's the best that they can do, and they're not even good at that. Like they are literally like, I don't know like why we need guidance counselors in North America, but
for this relationship to be productive, Norway employs one of its strangest tools: dynamic security. Imagine security in an American prison. What do you picture? Guards standing on elevated walkways, watching with guns in their hands, ready to unleash a hail of rubber bullets. Punisher tattoos, an iron fist. They are enforcers. In Norway,
what the fuck just happened to my
prison
camera? The
officers
hell? What was that? What just happened to my camera, bro?
aren't armed with guns. They don't stand aloof, stepping in only to intervene or to punish. Instead, they walk among the prisoners. They join them in workouts. They eat their meals together, play soccer and video games together. Dynamic security means living.
Can you just imagine like prison? There's like the guards and the prisoners all coming together like in a circle, and we're just like running a Super Smash Brothers tournament or some shit, bro. That if I was in Norway, bro, especially in this economy, I would go and rob some child just to get into fucking prison on purpose, bro. Like you're getting free housing, free freaking food. You're getting to play video games with a bunch of people. You get to just hang out and just have fun, bro. Like this sounds like what is happening to my camera. I'm not doing this on purpose. I swear to God. Oh my, what the hell?
With the prisoners, joining them in their daily activities. That may sound crazy, but it allows officers to establish relationships vital to really understanding the inmates, their strengths, their weaknesses, their personalities, and their risks.
Which I also like. It goes on to like, oh shit. It goes on to like helping the prisoners more as well. Like if you're able to understand somebody, especially like on a deeper, more spiritual level, it's gonna be so much easier to rehabilitate, I feel like, because if you're just going through the motions as a rehabilitation officer and you're just like, oh yeah, this is what you do, blah blah blah, nobody gives a fuck about that. Like if you're actually like with the people, discussing stuff with them, learning who they are as people,
their weaknesses, their personalities, and their risks, and this completely turns the traditional prisoner-guard relationship on its head. Yes, the prison officer is still an authority figure, but he's more like a mentor, a colleague, or a boss you could play pickup ball with, a teacher you can talk to about real life. Above all, dynamic security introduces the inmates to normal daily interactions with normal people, rather than criminals. Which is why you also heard that right. Many Norwegians do cook their own meals and play video games. Giving prisoners access to kitchen knives and a PlayStation might sound indulgent or even dangerous, but outside of prison, this is normal. And that's the second of Norway's 4 genius principles: Normalitetsprinsippet, or the normality principle. According to Are Hoydal and Nina Hansen, authors of The Norwegian Prison System, the normality principle is, quote, the idea that life inside prison should be as close as possible to life in the community. 4 standout examples show what this means in practice: bedrooms, political rights, skills training, and community contact. First, the bedrooms.
That makes a lot.
Norwegian prisoners have their own cells, frequently with their own bathrooms, showers, televisions, desks, and more, just as normal people
do. Bro, this is nicer than my childhood bedroom, bro. This is awesome.
In the normal world. This affords them not just privacy, but responsibility for the maintenance of their own space.
This makes sense, though. Like, if you are treated like an animal, you're going to act like an animal. If you're treated as a normal person with normal responsibilities, you're going to be able to, that makes sense, because you're going to be doing that for however many years you're sentenced for. and it's just going to be wired into your brain at that point.
Is a crucial skill for living an upright, organized life once released. Norwegian prisoners also have the same political rights as any other citizen. Convicts retain the right to vote and receive the same social services everyone in Norway receives: healthcare, education, and more. The point is not to cast criminals out of society. It's to train them to participate in it peacefully and productively, and you can't do that if you don't treat them like fellow citizens. Of course, that means learning to work productively, too. At Halden, one of Norway's newest and most famous prisons, most inmates go to work each morning, partake in recreation in the afternoon, and are not locked up again until 8:30 at night. Like cooking for themselves, this builds normal and healthy daily routines, and it even builds real qualifications to work as mechanics, carpenters, or chefs. And lastly, prisons seek to maintain inmates' connections to their outside communities. Prisoners are allowed regular conjugal visits, and at Halden, fathers in prison can even reserve a separate cabin within the prison grounds to stay privately with their family for up to 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
Maintaining these social
So
bonds
you literally get a private vacation with your family inside a prison, bro.
improves re-entry into society and preserves community ties, which are essential to avoiding reincarceration in the future. It can almost seem like this obsession with normality is an attempt to make prison not a punishment, but this is a mistake. In Norway, the principle is that the prison sentence, the loss of liberty, is itself punishment enough. Beyond this, there's no reason to seek to make someone's life miserable. In fact, that's just counterproductive. As Are Hoydal, co-author of this book and director of Halden Prison, points out, quote,
"In Norway, all will be released. There are no life sentences, so we are releasing your neighbor. If we treat inmates like animals in prison, then we will release animals onto your street."
Look at how I literally just said this, bro. But like, it's exactly true. Like if you guys think about it, like you have, like, let's say, like, you remember like when you were a child, right? And there'd be like some adult that's like trying to boss you around, but they're not your parents. You're like, who the fuck are you? Like, who the fuck are you to talk to me, right? You're gonna feel some type of emotion back towards that person. You're gonna feel like being combative to them. You know, if somebody's trying to be combative to you, you're gonna be combative back. You're not gonna just like take shit, right? It's the same exact principle.
That's why people like Hoydal prefer not to call the prison sentence by its literal Norwegian name, Fengelstraffen. Instead, they prefer Fengelstrappen, prison staircase. Because a time in prison is not a sentence to be served out, it's a transitional period from social.
Also, I just realized this guy said that there's no prison sentences or like life sentences. That's crazy. So like this guy that committed 77 murders or whatever, literally just gonna be walking around in the streets next to your neighbors and shit, bro. Like, I mean, how do sentences work though? Because like if you're killing 77 people, that's 77 people's lives that no longer exist now. You know, that like they don't exist. That sucks, right? So I don't know. I feel like murder and rape, like I feel like that's just like, I don't know. I think that's life sentences now. Like if you're committing like irreversible damage to that like people and that many people, what is going on with my camera? But like I feel like if you're doing that to like that many people, I don't know. I feel like you kind of still deserve life personally. That's just my personal opinion, but I'm also not a scientist that studies psychology, so these guys probably know more than I do.
Dysfunction to social function, a staircase from one place to another. And that is why the Fengelstrappen, or prison staircase, is the third Norwegian principle, and this is what it means. Norway has 3 types of prisons: closed prisons, open prisons, and transitional housing. Closed prisons are typical prisons, walls, fences, etc., albeit with all the odd Norwegian additions we've been talking about. Open prisons allow inmates out into the community during the day, and transitional housing allows inmates to live independent lives with some restrictions and monitoring by social workers. On their own, these 3 categories aren't all that unusual, but it's how Norway uses them. Here, the plan is for all high-security prisoners to eventually take steps down the Fengelstrappen,
Oh, wow.
down the staircase to lower security institutions. On top of that, Norway also uses ankle bracelet location monitoring as an even less life-disruptive correctional tool. Not only does this graduated process ease the transition back into society, ask yourself, if the prison can't move someone to a lower security facility, how can they release them into the public?
That makes so
Norway
much sense.
is so confident in the Fengelstrappen that, unlike in many American states, ex-cons aren't required to disclose their criminal history on job applications, except for some sensitive jobs like school teachers.
Okay, so you can gun down an entire mall and shut the mall down. Nobody's going back to the mall because it's got a shooting history now. And you're telling me that you could do that and not have to put that on your fucking Walmart resume? Like, can you imagine you're hiring somebody and you're like, hey, hi, you got any like background information, you know? Like, you're just like, now, I've been unemployed for the last 20 years, you know. I've just been playing Super Smash Brothers with the boys, you know. And it's just like, man, I'm just ready to get a job now. And like, without knowing that you just gunned down an entire mall 2 decades ago, I'm gonna crash the fuck out. Oh, we're back somehow. I don't know. Okay, thanks. I guess I didn't do any. All right, continue.
And it's easy to see why when only 1 in 4 will return to a life of crime. Of course, this transition can still be rocky. Employers do discriminate if they suspect applicants are former prisoners. Worse, debt and economic despair frequently accompany and motivate criminality. When someone is sent to prison for 8 months, the average Norwegian sentence, interest on their debts continues to grow, and though they retain rights to vote and receive social services, Norwegian convicts do lose any government pensions they might have while they're in prison. All this should combine into a serious economic hurdle that
Bro, what is wrong with my freaking camera, bro?
drives up the rate of reincarceration. But this is where Norway's 4th principle comes in. And it may be the country's most essential secret ingredient in this whole recipe: samfunn, or society. Norway has a high-trust society. They have an extensive welfare state that provides for citizens from cradle to grave, from family leave to education, from labor laws to medical treatment, all the way to generous government pensions. Across the political spectrum, people believe in providing for everyone, not just for some. This is subsidized by Norway's oil wealth, but Norwegians also pay high taxes, and other less resource-rich Scandinavian and European countries have similar social philosophies. And this egalitarian samfunn, or society, picks up a lot of the slack for those who have trouble finding their feet outside prison. So maybe I've led you on a little bit. I've made it seem like if only we copied the Norwegian system, the Fengelsbetjent or prison officers, the Normalitetsprinsippet or normality principle, and the Fengelstrappen or prison staircase, we could turn our prisons in America from hellscapes of rape and gang violence and criminal incubation into idyllic institutions. Of course, it was never going to be that simple. Norway's genius prisons are downstream of Norway's healthy samfunn. But that society isn't perfect, and neither are the prisons. Rates of suicide in Norwegian prisons are very high. Out of every 100,000 prisoners, as many as 180 may kill themselves.
Oh, wow.
In the United States, it may be as low as 24 per 100,000. For this, you could blame a small sample size, but also probably the greater independence and privacy afforded to Norwegian prisoners. That's also probably why drug use remains a big problem in Norwegian prisons compared to other countries. Norway also continues to practice solitary confinement.
Like, I guess that makes sense, because like you kind of like, as a, like, let's say you're a prisoner and you're like, you commit crimes, right? You go to prison. I feel like if you're in this like all perfect, like, you know, everything's like trying to help, you know, everything's good, you know, we're normal people in normal society. It's a different self-identity, right? And I feel like if you have a different self-identity, especially on that level, I feel like that's really bad for that could be really bad for your mental health. Like, that makes a lot of sense.
More than most European peers. However, it is used far less than in America, and unlike in America, there are extensive rules surrounding when it can be used and for how long. Moreover, some of Norway's clever ideas may sometimes be counterproductive. Ankle bracelet monitoring has become much more common, but this practice has removed a lot of lower-level offenders from the prison system who were helpful in generating normality in the prison.
What? Why? Alright, I do have to shit, so I will be right back. Alright, I'm back.
Compared to more serious criminals. There's also, of course, the cost. Norwegian prisons are expensive. It's no surprise. Imprisoning one person in Norway for a year costs about $100,000 on average.
That makes
sense.
sense.
America, the cost varies widely across the country, but on average is close to $40,000, less than half Norway's spend. Increased rates of immigration have also caused difficulties.
So this is what I've noticed with these type of arguments, right? So you know how, like a lot of the left is like, oh, we got to freaking allow immigrants to have all the housing and all the healthcare they want. That we got to just let them in the country. Even if they're illegal, we need to let all the illegal immigrants into the country and just, have everybody kumbaya, right? Let's just have free healthcare. And the thing is, with these type of arguments, is there's always some nuance to it. So, like, for example, with what we're watching right here, sure, it's like good to have the better rehabilitation system. They're able to rehabilitate better into society. They have better environments, but all that's gonna cost. That's got to come from somewhere. That costs money. The same thing with like the immigrants. Like, sure, we would love to have people from poorer areas, have their own areas in the United States and be able to have them be able to live a better life. But the thing is that comes at the cost of these people not being able to integrate with our society, because our societies are vastly different than where their societies are. I'm cool with people coming here legally and whatnot, being able to go through the legal process of that. But it's the same type of arguments as this. Like the same thing with free healthcare. Like free healthcare would be nice, but you're taxed way more. And I understand and like America's already getting taxed too much. Like we're getting taxed in an unconstitutional amount of money. So it's already a problem, and having to have more money get taxed from us to get these benefits is just not worth it, in my opinion, especially with the cost of living of everything.
Norway spends so much on its prisoners because they want to make good neighbors. But what if a criminal is to be deported rather than become someone's neighbor? In recent years, the percentage of the prison population that's foreign-born has increased, reaching 25% today. Though most of these have legally migrated from elsewhere in the EU, approximately half of the 25% will be deported at the end of their sentence. That's why Norway imprisons most illegal migrants at a special facility near Oslo that lacks many of the humane features that characterize their other prisons. Yet these challenges are not fatal. Immigration is a thorny issue in every democratic society, not just Norway, and hardly just in their prisons. And while Norwegian prisoners are 2.5 times as expensive as American prisoners, that's leaving a lot out. America imprisons people 10 times more often than Norway does. In prison, they serve 4 times longer, and when they get out, they're 3 times as likely to return. Put all that together, and suddenly Norway's approach doesn't seem so expensive after all. Yet there is a deeper problem beyond mere practicality. Even in the progressive Norwegian system, prisons are still of punishment. That punishment may be limited, restricted as much as possible to the deprivation of liberty on account of human rights. But what do you do with the criminal who seems almost inhuman? In 2011,
this is what I was wondering.
Anders Breivik bombed a government building in downtown Oslo. At the same time, he traveled to a youth summer camp on an island and executed dozens of teenagers. He killed 77 people in one day. In court, Breivik disputed the label of child murderer, saying,
"I killed no one under 14.
He called his murder spree
Sophisticated and spectacular,
and justified it as a response to
feminism, gender quotas, the destruction."
This guy's lawyer is fighting an absolute fucking war, bro. Like they're Can you imagine being this guy's lawyer and be like, "Oh, I didn't kill any kids. They were all over the age of 14." Like this dude's gonna have to pull like a bigger miracle than fucking Kanye's lawyer, bro. Like that's insane.
Social norms and multicultural ideology.
How do you deal with someone like this when you have no life sentence, no death penalty?
This is what I was wondering.
How could he ever become someone's neighbor again? In Norway, they sentenced him to 21 years, the legal maximum sentence. In prison, he has a private multi-room apartment. In his abundant free time, he plays video games, composes musings on white racial supremacy, and concocts ludicrous, faux Old Norse names for himself. He will never be rehabilitated. But even Breivik does not pose a fatal challenge to the Norwegian prison system, because that 21-year maximum sentence can actually be extended indefinitely every 5 years. It's unlikely Breivik ever sets foot outside those walls again, and that's a good thing. But perhaps you still feel something is missing. I know I do. I want someone like that to suffer.
Yeah.
The idea of him enjoying himself at all is honestly a little disturbing. But what right do I have to say what's just? Remember this guy from the beginning of the video? His name is Harald Fusker. He directed Norway's Prison Officer University for 30 years and said his mission was to train officers who believed that, quote,
People can change their pattern of action.
he's wearing those dark glasses because in 2011 he was blinded by a bomb in downtown Oslo planted by Anders Breivik. This man lost his sight and spent months in a hospital because of Breivik. Yet when he was face to face with Breivik in court, Fusker
You can go blind to like I get like a nuke, right? Like if a nuke goes off, or like a really big like country like level bomb, like a bomb that a country is able to develop, I get going blind from that. But like one that like just a guy develops, I didn't know you could go blind from. That's crazy. That's a horrible way to lose your vision.
still defended the Norwegian prison system and said, quote,
I haven't changed these attitudes and values.
and in the end, that is the secret. That is how Norway has the world's softest prisons and also one of the safest societies, because Norwegians believe in their prison system, in rehabilitation, even when they're faced with some of the most barbaric cruelty imaginable, because they believe in and trust each other. Norway's humane prisons work because they're an extension of a humane society built on a foundation of sincerely held public values. In America, as many as 1 in 5 inmates may be raped in prison. 3 in 4 will return within 5 years. Few will ever be granted a real opportunity to re-enter society. We have a broken system. I do believe that if America adopted some of Norway's practices, the Fengselsbetjent or prison officers, the Normalitetsprinsippet or normality principle, and the Fengselsstraffen or prison staircase, these strategies would do real, lasting good to many and to our society. But they alone can't truly fix the inhuman prison regime we have in America, because they are all downstream of Norway's society.
And also on top of that, like there's just some people that are not rehabilitatable. Like the guy that like the one that killed 77 people. Like there's just some people that just don't want to change. Obviously, the entire point of the video is like we're able to up the percentage of people that can be changed. But you know, like there's just people that don't want to be changed. It's just how it is, unfortunately. So it's really it is an unfortunate situation. I think we gotta find a balance between this, bro. We gotta find a balance.
It's Samfund. Theirs is a system that asserts in every facet of life, from welfare to prisons, a human being deserves to be treated as a human and as equal to all fellow humans. As the prisoner turned statesman Nelson Mandela said,
No one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails.
to reform America's
That's a
broken
hard-ass
prisons
quote.
then means to reform America itself. A tall task, to be sure, but taking some notes is a good place to start. And we don't have to start with prisons either.
Oh, this is the end of the
Higher
video. Okay, wait. That was a good ass video, bro. Subscribing to this man. That was a good video. Oh, I'm not unsubscribed. I don't have notifications for any of my channels. But bro, this is a good ass video. Yeah, I don't know. Like some people are just they're just not rehabilitatable, but I think there's just a lot of change that needs to be done with the US systems in general. There's a lot of change that needs to be done in general. But yeah, that was a good ass video.